Let's talk about the easing of the lockdown. Nicola Sturgeon yesterday decided to speed up the lifting of the lockdown because she says she's following data, not date, something your boss, the Prime Minister, has said. As of this Friday, 4 people from 2 different households can meet indoors. On Monday in England, we were allowed to sit with someone we lived in the same household as on a bench and not face a fine. We're going to have to wait until the 17th of May, 2+ months away, before people can meet as different households indoors. Can I replay you back a clip of what you had to say to me when we last spoke on the 8th of January 2 months ago, just days after we went into lockdown? Here's what we had to say to each other. And at the point when we have got the over 70s vaccinated, we're told by mid-February, at that point, 2 weeks after that, 3 weeks after that, I want every single one of my freedoms back, and I want every business back open. I want every child back at school. And you can't promise me that.
Well, you and I will be joining each other on the barricades to get our freedoms back.
Will you promise that?
Yes, Julia.
Grant Shapps, you promised you'd be on the barricades 2 months ago if we didn't get all of our freedoms back as soon as over 70s have been vaccinated. What time should I meet you at the barricades?
Well, look, we're starting to get our freedoms back. My kids
that wasn't the conversation.
Well, hold on.
I wanted all of my freedoms back, and you agreed.
Right. My kids went back to school on Monday. We're getting more freedoms on the 29th. We're getting more freedoms on the 12th of April, more on the 15th of May, earliest dates, albeit in each case, and actually complete freedoms on the 21st of June, all being well. You refer to the Scottish example. I'm looking at their stats. Their case rates per 100,000 are lower than in England. So unsurprisingly, they've been able to come to a slightly different timetable on the unlock. But I think all of that's rational. And I stand by what we were saying before. If there hadn't been a roadmap, if we were saying, oh, well, these cases are coming down, but we're not going to tell you how we're going to get out of lockdown, then, you and I would be out there.
You agreed with me on the 8th of January. You agreed with me that, of course, you supported the lockdown, which I didn't, but you supported the lockdown as a cabinet member on the basis that the game changer was the vaccines. And when over 70s had been given their jab, now we've had more over 70s jabbed sooner than we could ever have possibly hoped for. It's been a magnificent success from the government. We always give credit where we can on this show to what's been done. We know it's got more effectiveness than we could possibly ever hoped. It's not just cutting deaths, it's cutting serious illness. It's also cutting transmission. We know all of that. And yet, here we are on the 10th of March, and yet we are not seeing anything more than children going back to school. We have to wait more than 2 months before we can meet another household indoors. We have to wait another, at least a couple more months after that, a month after that, before we're allowed to travel around the country, before we're allowed to go on a plane again. How can you possibly say you stand by what you said in January?
Because actually, just listening to the clip you just played to me, we were talking about some date in May. I didn't catch the detail there. And actually, we are returning a lot of the freedoms, including freedoms to travel and stuff, all being well in May. So we will be quite near the end of this by that time. So look, lots of people, whether or not you agree with the lockdown or not, everybody, yourself included, has had to contribute enormously to what's been a very difficult and painful year for a lot of people. And what people don't want to do is come out of this lockdown and then end up back in another one.
Why would we do that? We've got the vaccine.
Well, to give you an example, right now we know that the rates in secondary school age children is more or less flat, and we expect it probably to go up as a result of the schools going back. Fair enough. Yeah. That's a risk that we're going to take. And the reason we're going to take it is because the older populations, people above 60 or so now, have been more vaccinated. But only 1 million of those people, 1.1 million out of the 22.5 million, have actually received the second vaccination. So people aren't fully protected.
They've got 90% protection. They can choose, if they're worried, they can choose to stay at home.
Well, that gets into the wider arguments about lockdowns, where you and I didn't quite ever agree, which is, yes, it's the choice of that individual whether they infect themselves. Unfortunately, this is one of those diseases where if you infect yourself, you also put other people at risk.
But we're not putting other people at risk because if I'm getting my jab on Friday, I'm 52. I'm not remotely at risk of dying of this disease. I've got a higher risk from flu, and we don't lock down for flu every year. We've got Chris Whitty and Patrick Vallance at a committee yesterday talking about how, we're going to have a resurgence after lockdown. We're going to keep doing this forever and ever and ever at this rate.
Julia, you are a risk to my mum, 83, who's only had one vaccine.
Which is why I'm getting the jab.
And my dad, 89, who's not had any vaccine.
Which is why I'm getting the jab.
So, which is why you're getting the jab, but you'll accept that you'll A, need to have the first jab, B, need to have the second jab, and C, need to wait a period before those jabs are effective. So what we can't do...
We've already done that. We've got 90% coverage of 90+% of the people who are at risk of dying of this disease. I hate to break this to you, Mr. Shapps, but people die of diseases all the time.
I agree, and I don't want to be squeamish about it, even though, as you know, my dad was in hospital with coronavirus, and I see the risks of this disease. But I don't want to be over squeamish about it, because people die. That's a fact sadly a fact of life. But what we're seeing here is, if we don't allow time for the vaccinations to actually do their thing, and remember, it's 3 weeks after the vaccination, and then you need the second vaccination, and to achieve the speed of rollout, we're leaving up to 12 weeks for the second vaccinations. The whole strategy is very effective, but it's not complete yet, and so you can't act before the thing is done.
But the Prime Minister promised on January the 4th, when we went into this lockdown, the Prime Minister said, when hospitals aren't at risk of being overwhelmed, and when all the over 70s at risk have been vaccinated, then we will come out of lockdown. That hasn't happened. That was a lie. You said to me you'd man the barricades. That was a lie as well. Do you understand why lots of people don't trust the government anymore?
Let me give you the figures. 1.181 million people, so less than 1.2 million people, have received both doses of the vaccine, out of which those people, not all of those people, will be 3 weeks out, therefore fully protected. So you're talking about the 22.5 million amazing vaccination program, which is going to ramp up even further. By the way, 43% of adults and all the rest of it. It's been phenomenal. You're talking about that as if it's job done, whereas in fact we've got the second.
The jab is more effective after the first dose than it was hoped for to be effective after 2 doses. So we've already fulfilled that requirement.
Well, not as much as we need to. So, the
goalposts always move, don't they? They're going to keep moving forever. Am I ever going to see? At what point am I going to see you on the barricades, Grant?
Well, I was going to say, name one other major economy who've actually provided a full unlock program. Answer: none. So we're already way ahead. And I know you're chomping at the bit to get out, and you want to be able to get away on holiday and all the rest of it. We're working on all of that.
I want to have my civil liberties back.
Absolutely.
I want my civil liberties back that are mine by right. On the moment I was born, I had those rights, and your government has stolen them from me and 67 other million people, and you promised you would be on the barricades with me and everyone else if we didn't get our freedoms back once the vaccine was rolled out. That was not true, was it?
First of all, I want you to have your civil liberties back, but I don't want you to have it back in a way that it kills other people. Secondly, in that exchange in January that you just played, we talked about a May date. And actually, as it turns out, because that will be on the third stage of the unlock, we will largely have our civil liberties back by May, hopefully, and actually by June entirely. So I think we're absolutely delivering on it and doing this incredible vaccination program at the same time.
Incredible vaccination program, but it doesn't count unless we're not just saving lives, we're actually saving our civil liberties. I'm sorry, I feel passionate about this, Grant Shapps. But I know I do, and I know millions of others do, and I'm one of the few people in the media speaking for those people, and they need to have their voices heard. I let people make their decision about what you've had to say. I do appreciate you joining us once again. I really do appreciate your time. Thank you very much for joining us.